What's up, everybody? Season 2, Episode 9 of Around the Felt, AFC East edition. Reagan's New York Jets take flight. I'm sure you're excited to dive into this division. Our last one in the preseason. And then it's time to start talking awards, season-long predictions, playoff predictions. And then it's week 1, baby. Next week, Reagan, we are 9 days away. I'm pumped up. I know you are, too.
I'm so pumped. I can't wait to just glaze the shit out of my Jets. I'm so excited. And, it'll be nice to crap on the other teams or maybe just the Patriots, I ain't that biased, but I'm pumped. Pumped.
Yeah, I know you are. This is going to be painful for me because I am pretty high in the Jets this year, but we'll get into it later. First, we got some news, Reagan. Some big news out of the Big D. CeeDee Lamb, 4-year, $136 million extension with $100 guaranteed. The second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, just behind Justin Jefferson. I don't know why it took this long for Dallas and CeeDee to get this deal done. Apparently, they were close for a while. It was like, all right, Dallas, get your guy on the field. Get your star signed. We all know you're going to re-sign him. Finally, they get it done. 4 for $136, a mega deal. Reagan, this is big because I know you got some CeeDee Lamb in some leagues. I got some CeeDee Lamb shares, so this is nice. It's not going to linger into the season, and they're ready to roll in Big D.
Yeah, no, dude. I love how you keep saying Big D, man. But
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Fantasy owners rejoice. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, now you can draft them at 1 if you want. A lot of people were kind of using that aspect to really decide on maybe that was why you took a McCaffrey or Tyreek because they didn't have the contract issues. But now, if you want him at 1, go take him. I mean, he's going to have another huge year. Definitely one of the few guys that actually has the potential to push for 2,000 yards this year. So can't wait.
Absolutely. I did a draft yesterday. I got him at 6, and I was ecstatic to get him at 6.
I bet you were probably doing like cartwheels, backflips, all the 9 yards.
I was like, damn, it's a work league, so all in good fun. But I was like, wow, giving me CeeDee Lamb at 6 is just
you know
despicable.
what? No, I didn't know we were doing a work league.
Yeah.
Oh, your side job. I see.
Oh, yeah.
The hobby you do, the 40-hour-a-week hobby you do. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, the hobby, the real hobby. Some guys are starting on the PUP list, physically unable to perform to start the season. We got TJ Hawkinson. That was expected, tore his ACL in Week 18. Nick Chubb, the brutal leg injury last year, and Jonathan Brooks, the rookie running back for Carolina, also coming off an ACL tear in the fall. Your thoughts on these 3 guys? I don't think any of this is news, except maybe Brooks, because they were saying he could return in Week 3 or 4. Might as well give the young buck time to fully recover and get healthy. So I understand it from their perspective there, but your thoughts on these 3 guys being put on the PUP?
The biggest thing is basically now where do they fall in fantasy leagues? I mean, from an NFL standpoint, outside of maybe the Browns, maybe they'll compete this year, but the other 2 teams, we don't expect them to be playoff teams. So why would you even risk it? Let them sit, rest, bubble wrap them up. From fantasy, I mean, the tight ends, you don't want any on Minnesota. Carolina, now Hubbard's interesting because it's a 4-week starter, going to get a ton of touches. Miles Sanders not going to be involved. And then in Cleveland, I know they just cut Foreman today, I saw. So Jerome Ford's the guy, So
Jerome
I
Ford
think
is the guy.
He is the guy. So sneaky for best ball leagues, too, if you drafted him late, because now you got a 3-down, locked and loaded guy in Cleveland, a team that wants to run the ball first.
Yeah, I like taking Chubb late in redraft leagues right now because when he comes back, he's going to get that volume that he's always had. It's still a really good offensive line. It just how does he recover at 28 years old from that brutal leg injury? I like Jonathan Brooks, stashing him too because the draft capital's there and the upside is certainly there with the tools that he has. And in the offense, I'm not really sold on Chuba Hubbard. So potentially, if Bryce Young does put it together, that could be a very sneaky pick down the line. You can get him really late. And then Hawkinson, I love double dipping at tight ends if I get a guy earlier and then getting Hawk really late as well because he's a perennial top 5 fantasy tight end if he's healthy. Granted, that was with Kirk Cousins. Now it's Sam Darnold. But if you get a tight end later and you miss out on one of the top tier guys and take Hawkinson, I love it. I also love it in best ball. Get him in round like 12, 13, and it's beautiful as my second tight end because when he does come back, he will put up top 5 weeks and have that just sitting there waiting. If you're good on bye weeks like Even want to take Trey McBride, whose bye week is Trey McBride is early. Sam Laporta's is late. You take one of those guys, even if you double dip in best ball with Hawkinson really late, you could have 2 top 5 tight ends every week.
Or hell, even one of them might suffice as your flex for the week, which isn't a bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you would hope it would be a good week, and it's not like, oh shit, Hawkinson with his 10 points is my flex.
But no, yeah, you're like Hawkinson scored, 6 catches for 80 yards. You feel pretty damn good about that. And then you have a guy like Laporta or McBride who are putting up their numbers all year. Not a bad spot to be in. JuJu Smith-Schuster back with the Chiefs, Reagan. I mean, as soon as he got cut from New England, this just made way too much sense in my mind. Do you think he actually is going to have a significant role on this team? Because I don't think he has a big role. But he's more of a depth piece. He's been there. He's won a ring there. But still, it's good depth for Kansas City at this point.
I mean, he's worth a late flyer in best ball. That's about it to me. I mean, redraft leagues, I'm not even stashing him.
Not even worth it. No.
If he has a good week at some point, which I don't think he's going to, they'll be like the number 4 or 5 for Mahomes. So, I don't think there's much to talk about here.
Nah. Samaje Perine cut from Denver. Not really worried about Perine, although with Cleveland now releasing Foreman, and Ford, the only guy really established in the picture, potentially Perine goes there, but we're not worried about Perine for fantasy purposes. You're not going to be playing him. What does this mean for the backfield in Denver now that it's Javonte, Jaleel, and the rookie Audric Estime? It looks good in the preseason.
Well, from what I've seen, they're talking about how they think Estime could be a third down guy, but he's just got to get better in pass protection and as a route runner. So I think those two, between Javonte and Estime, whether Javonte's
Wait, hold on. They're saying if he was better in pass pro and ran better routes, he could be the third down back. Isn't that just
no? Could be a 3 down back.
A 3. Okay, I was gonna say if you're saying just to be the third down back, like, isn't that what a third down back's supposed to do?
No. Yeah, so they think he could eventually develop into a third down role, from what I saw on Sleeper from some of the beat reporters. So I'd imagine him and Javonte will be kind of splitting those early down touches, where Jaleel will be the third down back, and then they'll kind of even throw him in some packages out of the slot. And I mean, we saw last year he was very electric with the ball in his hands, didn't need a lot of touches to have a very high yard per carry. And like I said, he still is my sleeper for best ball. So this makes me even more excited for him because there's one less running back to worry about. And out of those 3, Perine was the biggest threat to him as the third down back, because that's the role he had in Cincinnati. Great blocking running back, but also pretty good pass catcher. So that's great for McLaughlin's value, because now he's 100% locked in as a third down back.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I personally want to stay away from this entire backfield in terms of redraft, but for best ball, you were right. I mean, Jaleel definitely stock up with Perine being out of the picture.
Hey, I can't wait to hear that all season. There's going to be a lot of times you're saying you were right.
Don't get too ahead of yourself, my friend. Drock, get your ass in here. What do we got for questions? I heard a little thump over there. I don't know what he was doing. I heard a little thump in the other room, Dave.
Yeah, I had to get prepped for that. We're starting with Austie. Austie had a fantastic weekend at the Penthouse this weekend, so he's going to fire us up with some questions. First question of the night: who's going to be the Bills' number 1 receiver by the end of the season?
Well, if he wants to, I'm going to go with Shakir. I think he's a guy that, well, he's going to play in the slot. He's a guy that we've seen show flashes, but Diggs was always there. They had Gabe Davis. He was kind of shoved down the depth chart. So now that there's a bigger role for him and there's no clear number 1, I do think he will become the number 1 as the guy that's been there and is most established, because Curtis Samuel and obviously they draft Keon Coleman are the new guys in town. So I'm going to go with him just being the guy who's been there, already has some sort of history with Josh Allen. So he's the one I've been targeting in kind of all my fantasy leagues and best ball drafts.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. A lot of people want to just go with Keon Coleman because he was selected in top of the second round. But Keon Coleman does have a lot he needs to work on with his game, particularly in creating separation. And he needs to be more consistent, which has me a little bit worrisome for this season in particular. Shakir has been there. And then there's Samuel, which is a guy that I want to pick, but he's yet to eclipse 900 yards in his career. However, his best season was with Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator in Carolina back in 2020. So with Brady now in Buffalo, they have that connection. I think Curtis Samuel could be involved. If I had to pick right now, which I don't love picking either of these options, I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel will be the number 1, even though I don't know if any of these guys will eclipse 1,000 yards by themselves.
Well, Drake May. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm completely staying away from Curtis Samuel. His ADP has been way too high. That makes me want to yak. So
I'm not taking him at his ADP. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to take him in fantasy because I had the opportunity yesterday and I did not.
Yeah, no.
I'm just saying who will be the number 1. I think Samuel will be my best guess.
That's kind of contradicting because, I mean, if you think he's going to be the number 1, you want to take him.
Yeah,
I can't imagine a number 1 wide receiver for Josh Allen not returning on ADP.
Okay, but it could be he's the number 1, but still only has 800 receiving yards, and then Shakir's at like 680, and then Coleman's at 600, and then
I just find it hard to
ball around a lot to Kincaid.
I find it hard to believe with as pass heavy as that team's going to be, and as how risk not averse, but how he's just willing to always chuck the ball. And I find it hard to believe that his number 1 won't get over 1,000 yards this year. So if you truly do think it's Samuel, I think it's safe to say he'll get over 1,000 yards.
I'm not very confident in the pick either, which means I'm staying away at his ADP.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying with Josh Allen.
I'm just trying to keep you honest here.
I know, but I don't think Samuel, Shakir, or Coleman have 1,000 yards. I don't think any of the 3 do.
See, I think at least one of them does. I just think with Josh Allen.
Put a pin in it. I don't think it happens. I think it happens.
I think it happens. Put a pin in it.
I don't.
Just keeping your boy honest, Jock. I'm keeping your boy honest.
I don't.
He ain't my boy.
Fair. They ain't like us.
He ain't like us. All right. Will Drake May play this year for the Patriots?
Dumbass. Yeah, he's gonna play this year. No, I'm kidding, Osti. I'm kidding. But yeah, no, he's gonna play this year for sure. I don't know when it'll be. We'll take a deeper dive into the whole Patriots team and whether or not he should or not play this year at all. But I don't see how he doesn't play. I think the team's gonna struggle this year, and it's something for the fans to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, Mayo's already contradicting himself. He said the other night that he's the number 2, but then he said the next morning that he's outplayed Jacoby Brissett. So they're being cautious, but which they should be, because this looks to be the worst offensive line in recent memory for the Patriots. Their receiving core is probably the worst in football. So you don't want to tarnish the guy you just took number 3 and really ruin him before he has an opportunity to be successful, because he has the tools to be a really good quarterback in this league. I do think he will play. When? I don't know. I'd imagine they're going to go with Brissett to start the season, see how things roll out, and May will get inserted later on.
All right, let's hop to some dynasty or fantasy questions. Will Garrett Wilson be a top 12 wide receiver this year?
I 100% think so. I mean, I think the only way he's not is injury, or if Rodgers goes down. I don't see how he's not. I mean, he's getting drafted as like a almost top 5 in some leagues. So I'd be shocked to see Aaron Rodgers, wide receiver 1, not being in the top 12. I mean, just going back, look at what Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson were for fantasy. So, I mean, kind of just go off of that.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson has posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons despite playing with arguably the worst quarterback in the league throughout that time. And actually, only Devontae Adams has had more inaccurate passes thrown to him over the last 2 seasons than Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers puts a ball where the majority of NFL quarterbacks in the history of this game have not been able to do. The way that he can hit a back shoulder and put it in the pinpoint perfect spot, the way he can thread the needle. Yeah, and they should certainly score more points. So the touchdown should go up. He's already had 1,000 yards back-to-back seasons with awful quarterback play. So he's being drafted in fantasy like a top 12 fantasy wide receiver, and he should live up to that status, like Reagan said, barring injury. He will be a top 12 wide receiver for sure.
What Bills wide receiver should you target in fantasy?
I mean, I already said Shakir. I don't need to get into too much more depth with that, but if whoever the wide receiver 1 is, and I think that's Shakir, so that's who I'm targeting.
Yeah, I don't love any of them, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not taking, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not taking Sam as ADP. I'm not taking Coleman as his ADP, because I'd rather take a guy like Brian Thomas, who's right around there as well. There's other options I like in all these areas, but I mean, I guess I would agree with Reagan at their ADP. If you're going to take a dart throw, like on the bench for someone that could hopefully be a flex play for you down the stretch, it would be Shakir.
Well, you have to. Austy's got a gun to your head right now, and he wants an answer. So is that what you're going with?
Yeah, I guess. I'm not taking Samuel at ADP. I'm just not. So there's better options there. There's a lot less risky options.
We'll top the Big G. Big G's first question he's got for us. On paper, this is the best roster the Jets have ever had.
Sounds like a statement.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, on paper, yeah, the best roster. Probably, yeah. I mean, the amount of all pros and Pro Bowlers on this team.
Yeah.
And then you insert Aaron Rodgers, Tyron Smith, who you didn't have last year. So, yeah.
All right, his second question he's got for us. Is Sauce Gardner on the Hall of Fame trajectory?
I mean, it's way too early to be talking about that. But when you start your first 2 years as an All-Pro, yeah, obviously you're on the trajectory. But a lot of ball left to be played in Sauce's career. We'll see.
Yeah, I would say yes, 100%. I mean, 2 All-Pros in 2 years. I mean, there's corners that have probably gotten in with like 2 or 3 All-Pros. So the fact that he's already got some of them under his belt.
That's all the questions we got tonight, boys.
Ooh, all right. Okay. Thanks, you guys didn't really get us a lot today, but it's okay. We appreciate everyone that submitted questions. We are going to start with the bottom feeders of the AFC East last year, potentially the bottom feeders of the entire league this year. And joining us to talk about the dumpster fire, which is the New England Patriots these days, is big Pats fan Paul Keller. Paul, big fan of the show. You're a day one OG. We appreciate you being on, my friend. How are you?
Thank you, boys. This is great. Quite the opportunity. And hopefully we have a somewhat okay season this year, but probably not going down that road. So,
yeah, it's not too much to be optimistic about before we even dive into this team. Obviously, you're happy as a Patriots fan if Drake May shows he has the potential to be your franchise quarterback at some point throughout the season. And if you start to see growth from some of these young players on your core, particularly who you drafted this year, maybe Jalen Polk and Drake May develop a connection and they look pretty good. And that's something to hang your hat on.
That's about the best way you can put it. I mean, really from the game I watched the other night against Washington, he made some great plays out of the pocket with a good feel. He has great arm talent. My concern is, like you said, with Mayo contradicting himself, please do not put him in there week one. The kid is not ready. He's got ball placement issues. He's got read issues. So, and on top of the fact that offensive line is, I think I could be trying out for the team right now with how bad it is. So that's just something that you want to point out.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
Love this. I mean, hearing Patriots fans talk like that, I love it. They've been good for too long. So
this is
hearing
Reagan's
him
big
humble
moment.
now.
This is his moment of more than 20 years to take the floor and let me have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time ever I look at Patriots fan and I'm just like, now you know how I felt for the past 20 years. But in fairness, unless we get a Super Bowl, I will never know how you felt. So,
yeah, we had a few of those. That was a good run. But again, nowadays it's a pretty empty stadium and some pretty pissed off fans.
We'll just take one.
Yeah, don't blame them, but also
just give me one.
Yeah, I mean, they're being a little greedy after what they just witnessed. But speaking of that offensive line, some key losses: Riley Reef and Trent Brown. Not ideal. J.C. Jackson, who was kind of washed up. Devontae Parker. If you listened to the pod last year, you know how much I dislike Devontae Parker.
And I was going to say, you're not a Parker fan at all.
Dude does not get separation at all. I do not want to be his quarterback. Mac Jones, obviously the backup in Jacksonville now, and Ezekiel Elliott. Some key adds. Not much here. Jacoby Brissett, Chukwunu Okorafor, and Antonio Gibson. So Okorafor is the only significant free agent added on the offensive line. They did draft Caden Wallace in the 3rd round out of Penn State, but we'll see if that's enough to get the job done in protecting the quarterbacks. Very low win total here at 4.5. They are underdogs in every game this season, and Sharp predicts that they are going to face the 2nd most difficult schedule in the league. It's not looking good for the New England Patriots. Reagan,
it's going to be a bad product.
You could start us off here. Your thoughts on the Patriots? What's your prediction for this season?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit of a hater, but I got them going 2-15 this year. I think it's gonna be, I think
that's a low blow.
It is, but honestly, like as long if May doesn't even play this year, you might as well want them to lose out. I mean, the team on paper is terrible. I mean, look at what Carolina put around Bryce Young last year. The teams are very, very similar. And then you're trading away the few good players you have on defense. I mean, I granted, I wouldn't have paid Judon either. It doesn't fit the timeline, but you just traded away one of your best players on the defense. You were already highlighting before the offensive line has a lot of issues. I mean, the weapons, nobody's elite. I mean, there's a lot of guys where you're like, you never know. I mean, obviously, they took Baker in the 4th, and then they took Polk in the 2nd. And I'm a big Pop Douglas guy. He's a guy I'm definitely targeting in best ball fantasy. I think he'll be the number 1 for Drake May, Jacoby, whoever it is. And then you got the crew of washed-up tight ends between Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. So that'll be interesting. So, I mean, it's not like he has the worst weapons. Definitely better than what the Panthers had last year, but the defense is really going to hold them back. Obviously, they're in a tough division. But yeah, I've been going 2-15. They'll have the first overall pick next year. But hey, the good thing is somebody's going to want to trade for that first overall pick. So you can trade back, get some more capital, really build around Drake May.
Go ahead, Paul. How do you see your Patriots faring in 2024? A little bit more
I'm
optimistic.
Say, I think a repeat of last year. I think 4-13 is definitely where they max out, which is quite a fall off from the old days. We used to do the opposite, but I'd say that's about as accurate as it gets in terms of their talent is pretty bad at all the positions. I think that the biggest question is this the worst team in football? And the answer to that, I'm going to have to go on a limb and say my team is probably the worst team in football this year.
This is not a biased fan right here.
Not at all. No. I mean, nice to have Onwenu back on the offensive line. He got a big deal in the offseason. Him and David Andrews are the 2 best offensive linemen. And the rest of the guys, again, I think they got off the scrap heap. I don't even know their names, really. I mean, Polk is a guy, and Javon Baker. There, I think, guys coming out of camp that have shown some promise at receiver, younger guys. Obviously, the situation with Ayuk in San Francisco would have been a nice addition, but his report was, I don't want to play for New England because there's no quarterback situation that's stable there, and I don't disagree with him there. So that would have been a nice addition to a really young crew. I think that it's great to get these guys some reps. Demario Douglas was definitely their best receiver last year.
He led
good
the team
possession
with
guy.
561 yards, but Pop did not score last year. Do you think he scores this year? Do the Patriots score this year?
I will. Again, I was just going to ask that too. I don't even know if we're going to get in the end zone. So we might as well schedule Voorhees High School in the first couple games to have a chance. That's how bad it's going to be. But which I'm not used to this because last year they were in a lot of games. I mean, they won 4, but they had a lot of close losses. They had a close loss against the Giants. I believe they had the Colts in there as well. And we always find a way to kind of split with the Jets. So that's always fun back and forth. But
that's your 2 wins. I got them beating. Jets just can't get over the hump.
Right. And I want to say 2. Yeah, 2, but as well with the tight ends, Hunter Henry, his first season with Mac there, with Mac's essentially his Pro Bowl year as a rookie, 9 touchdowns, was a great red zone target. Now, last 2 years has 8 touchdowns combined. Question is, how does the new offensive coordinator, kind of cycle these guys in, get them reps? How are they going to utilize an offense that is so barren and so inexperienced? I don't know what I'm going to be watching this year, honestly.
You're going to do what Reagan and I have done over the last decade for the most part. You're going to watch till halftime and then flick to red zone.
Yeah, red zone will be a good friend to you.
Oh, hopefully. Yeah. I did a draft the other day in fantasy, so I'll be watching some other teams, and hopefully I think I'll actually probably be tuning to the Jets a lot more. That's a team I do have coming out of the AFC to make the Super Bowl. So,
oh, hell yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Love it. Unbiased Patriots fan if you've ever seen one. Holy shit.
Yeah. So I'm actually right in between you guys. I got the Patriots going 3-14. So that means all 3 of us, including the Patriots fan, have them going under their 4.5 win total. This was the worst offense in the league last season. I see similar results for this season as the guys have highlighted. It's really bleak a talent. And I don't think May is going to start at the beginning of the season, but he has the tools to develop into a really good quarterback. Hence why a guy like Brandon Dable, quarterback whisperer, wanted to trade up and get him. But for the Patriots, that made no sense. They needed a quarterback. Why try to get cute? Just stick and pick your guy. try to develop him, but also try not to ruin him before he really has the opportunity. Drake excels in play action. He has a big arm. He can move around in the pocket. He can make plays outside the pocket. He can drive the ball over the middle of the field. All things you love to see. He seems like he's mature. He's a leader. He's good in the locker room. He does struggle a little bit with his accuracy, but he does move around well in the pocket, which should help him if he does have to play early behind this bad offensive line. But yeah, he's still raw. He still needs some fine-tuning. He's not as pro-ready as Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix or maybe even Michael Penix, who's not starting this year. But, he doesn't have to be right now because there's not high expectations for this team this year. Hunter Henry is going to turn 30. You touched on him, Paul. He's not averaged more than 35.5 yards per game in a single season since joining the Patriots. So for fantasy purposes, I don't even care. Don't want him. He's purely touchdown dependent. And if you have to pick him up off waivers, that's all you're praying for is a touchdown. But for me, Hunter Henry is past his prime. He's really not going to do much in this offense this year. Big thing for the Patriots, Ramondre needs to get back to that 2022 form. He only had 857 total yards on 194 touches last year. He did miss 5 games, but the year prior, he had over 1,400 yards on 279 touches. And he was really good in the passing game. So he says he likes the way that the offensive coordinator is designing the offense. It's a running scheme that fits his talent more with the zone. So hopefully Ramondre takes a step forward, more so like 2022. That could take some pressure off of Drake May when he does come to play, or even help this team move the football and stay competitive. And no wide receivers had a 900-yard season since Edelman in 2019. You're hoping one of these young bucks that were highlighted earlier, Polk or Baker, can step up into that role and be at least a 900-yard receiver. That's not asking too much. Trust me, I've dealt with the Giants, man. We haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Odell, so it'd be nice for the Giants to get that going as well. Defensively, more promising than the offense. They were a top 3 team against the run last season. Christian Barmore is a beast on the interior, 8.5 sacks, but was 3rd in PFF's run stop metric, so that's why they were a top 3 team against the run. Anthony Jennings was also great against the run. I like that. Their linebacker core of Jawan Bentley and Jelani Tavia, not big names, but they're also good against the run. Bentley kind of struggles in coverage, but they're a team that's going to stop the run, and you're going to have to beat them through the air. But hopefully Christian Gonzalez, who looked legit in those 4 games last year before being out for the season, he lived up to his draft status. And Belichick was almost like, okay, this guy's just too good of a player right here. Corner's not our biggest need at this point, but he's the best player on our board. We're going to take him, and he looks like a slam dunk. Oh, man, the Commander's really passing on him to take Forbes. It's looking worse and worse. Hopefully Gonzalez can stabilize the back end there with Jonathan Jones. Kyle Duggar, solid. He coming off one of the worst years of his career, though, but he is really good at do it all, Swiss Army knife kind of guy. So is Jabril Peppers, both good against the run and the pass. So I don't mind the secondary here. I think it's a good secondary, honestly, especially if Christian Gonzalez bounces back. The front's okay. Defensively, they're not bad. It's just the offense is so putrid and pathetic. They're going to do the Jets and what the Giants have done over the last decade, and that's play a lot of 17-14, 20-10 type of games. And not going to be a fun team to watch, but 3-14, man. This team, I'd be surprised if they average over 15 points per game.
Yeah, that's great, Colin. Really, again, another great analysis there. Defense is strong with some good talent coming in. Keon White has been the big name out of camp, trying to replace Judon.
Now, Tech, they took him in the first round last year, I believe. At the end, or was it top of the second?
I believe it was top of the second. Yeah. Now he's a guy with some explosiveness off the edge, big kid. I don't expect him to be Matt Judon from the first snap. I mean, Matt, I still think is a very productive player. Again, didn't fit the timeline, and kind of sad to see him go. But, you touched on some great things. I think Christian Gonzalez overall is the best player on the team, which tells you, again, how great we are. We're having a cornerback.
A corner that played 4 games.
Right, played 4 games and is a second-year player. And then even last year was really Judon was the best player and was for about the past 2 seasons. But, yeah, pretty versatile secondary. Jonathan Jones is good in the slot. Duggar has been a great second-round pick. And even Marcus Jones, to have him back there at corner, and he also returns kicks as well, is a pretty explosive player. So we need more guys like that. I'm concerned about the run defense with Barmore being out with the blood clot situation. So, he's out indefinitely. We don't know how that even affects his career. If it was a career ender, that is a major blow to a defense that, again, has some promise. I even like Josh Uch out of Michigan. I think he's pretty explosive from the linebacker spot. So a lot of different things here, and it's been nice to at least have some talent being picked up from Belichick's analysis in the drafts, because as we know, the receiver position was not one of strength for him. But the defense, I think, will show some signs of promise in some different areas, and it will be the kind of the mainstay of the team, because even special teams is not that amazing, and they just released Chad Ryland, the kicker, today. So good stuff all around for the Patriots.
Our MVPs for the Patriots. Reagan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I did Ramondre. I mean, he's your best weapon on offense. I mean, we've seen what he can be. He's a 1,400 type of scrimmage guy. So obviously he's going to be the 3-down back. I do think there's a huge role for Antonio Gibson here as well, but I think Ramondre is still going to be the 3-down guy. I do think they're going to kind of scheme up some stuff for Gibson out of the slot, maybe even do some packages with 2 guys on the field. But I mean, he's just going to take so much pressure off of Drake May, or even if it's Jacoby Brissett. I mean, you just need a guy that you can run between the tackles, and and I think he's sneaky for fantasy. I'm probably staying away just because I don't see the touchdown upside there, but from a volume standpoint, he's a guy that's probably going to get 20 touches a game, just purely because they don't have anyone else.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I mean, I have him starting in my one league. It's a 2-flex league. So he's my second flex in a top heavy team. And I'm not loving it, but also I think it's sneaky because, like you mentioned, Reagan, I don't need him to give me 20 points. If he can be just a purely volume guy and catch a lot of dump offs from Brissett or May, he could be a sneaky, solid flex play in fantasy this year. Paul, who's your MVP?
I'm going to have to go with Brissett. Hopefully he's healthy for week 1. But, I mean, in order to have any kind of competent football team, which is the questions, unfortunately, we now have to ask for the Patriots, you got to have a competent quarterback. And I would hope that maybe he goes the whole year. I mean, I would like to see May fresh start next year. And I know they probably want to get him reps, but let's just keep the kid upright. Let's keep him healthy. I think there's a future there. And I think his ceiling is a lot higher than what Mac Jones's was. And we obviously saw how, when you gave Jones a steady situation in his first year with McDaniels and some okay weapons, but a good line, he did well. And I think that, then we transitioned to the idea with Matt Patricia there, which don't ask me why we did that. And then it was the following season was Bill O'Brien was supposed to reignite him last year.
Which he did. The offense was almost worse than what it was with Bill O'Brien, which seems impossible.
Absolutely horrifying.
With Matt Patricia, which seems impossible.
Which is insane because I don't think he's ever coached offense before. So I'm about as qualified as he is to do the job, essentially. But I would say Brissett's probably the guy. Hopefully goes the whole year, keeps us in some games, and hopefully is good enough to make it entertaining, but bad enough so we can get the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I wanted to go Barmore as my MVP and my depoy. Obviously, we don't know his situation. We just hope he's healthy, but for me to go with MVP and depoy on a team that's really bleak of talent, and I think Barmore is their best player on both sides, but taking him out of the equation for now, since we don't know, I'm going to have to agree with Reagan on the MVP of Ramondre, just because he's their best weapon to move the ball and be competitive right now until one of those young receivers proves themselves, or if one of the quarterbacks steps up and actually shows that they can lead this team, which I'm not sold on Brissett that he's going to do that. Drake May, I don't know if he's ready to handle this. I don't know if you put Caleb Williams on this team, if he's ready to do this either, even though they do have the college experience. So for me, it's got to be Ramondre. He's their best weapon right now. X Factor, Reagan.
Yeah, mine's the wide receiver room in general. There's just so many unproven guys where they've spent a 2nd-round pick this year, a 4th-round pick this year on Baker and Polk. Then last year they get Douglas, who seems like he's got some juice. Then 2 years ago they got Tyquan Thornton in the 2nd round. They still got guys like KJ Osborne, who they just signed, Jalen Rager. So they got a lot of guys that, haven't really proven much in this league, but we've seen that they are talented in a sense. Like Osborne obviously had some success at times with Minnesota, and then Rager, I mean, he's bounced around a lot, but he's a guy that we've seen be able to put up numbers and in specific games, like he'd go off. I mean, obviously a bust for sure, never living up to that capital, but just so many question marks. So if these guys can kind of step up, and at least 1 or 2 of them, and really return on where they were drafted and be whether it's Brissett, May, or, you never know. Why am I blanking on his name? Milton. No, it's not going to be Milton. I know that's a joke, been floating around a lot, but since he's getting lit up now in preseason, it's not as prominent in him actually getting in this year. But somebody's got to step up. So they're the biggest X factors for me.
Paul, who do you got?
I got the new coaching staff. I think there's some big question marks with, who is Gerard Mayo, essentially. I know he's kind of one of Belichick's guys, but we've seen certain guys, take over at the head coaching spot. For example, Matt Patricia, when he was even in Detroit. Not all these guys develop into head coaches necessarily. And I think that, again, another component of having a competent football team is, can we have a competent quarterback and a competent head coach? And we don't know if we have either. So I think that's a big question. Again, Van Pelt on offense, especially now with Kendrick Bourne getting placed on the PUP today. So he's missing the first 4 games. Was the number one receiver really in reality?
Yeah, I know people forget about him. Forgot to mention him.
Right. Because he gets hurt a lot, but he's a guy that he's pretty good after the catch. He was in Belichick's doghouse a little bit about 2 years ago, I think, and they were sitting him. And unfortunately, for some reason, they thought they could get away with that when we don't have a guy like Tom to, substitute where he can make it work with anybody. We had Mac Jones, and that kind of hurt that offense that year. But I'd say, just how is he going to make any of these guys pop? Can we get more out of Stevenson again? Can we get him back on track? Can we get Douglas going? Can we get Polk? We feel like we're developing some chemistry and some young talent into an organization that's just trying to press, restart. And I guess we'll see how it goes. But those are really 2 main guys: is Van Pelt and Gerard Mayo.
I love both of your guys' routes. I went with Drake May just because if Drake May does get the opportunity to play, and I'm not saying he wins a lot of games, but if he's putting up numbers and this team does start competing, you're like, all right, we got our guy. We're okay. This year, whatever. Don't care. Let's get a good draft pick next year. Let's use some of these free agent dollars and build up our team. And let's add a weapon at the top of the draft to support our quarterback. If Drake May comes in and he's terrible, well, things are looking bleak in New England because you don't want to have to restart again potentially in 2 years. So for me, Drake May's development is the X factor of this team and for the entire season. Rookie of the year, Reagan.
Yeah, so I kind of went back and forth on this one, but I'm going with Drake May just because odds are if Drake May steps in, that means the Brissett thing didn't work out. They weren't winning any games, and they're like, you know what? Let's just turn to him, see what he's got. And then with Polk, it's kind of hard because it kind of contradicts it, where for him to really be good, that means Brissett's probably good, or May. Otherwise, if this offense isn't great and, he's struggling to get open, doesn't have consistent quarterback play, he's not going to have a good year. So for me, I just went with May here. He's the guy they took at number 3. And I think a lot of his Polk success would come off of May.
Yeah, to rebound off that, I took May as well. I think it's a pretty obvious choice.
Yeah.
Again, at 3, you're hoping you found a guy with some talent. I know they took Mac Jones at 15, so that was a little bit different. But that was the guy they said was, the number 1 pro-ready guy out of college, and also the stuff that I think that that kid does have some talent. But I think May is a guy that we could see potentially be the answer. I'm hoping, but I think it's kind of a no-brainer if he can start this year, and again we can just escape and hopefully he doesn't get hurt, or he can develop something going to next year where now we got a lot of money maybe. And now I know not too many guys are looking to sign there, but if we throw out a bag or 2, and that was kind of the idea with Ayuk was, we'll make him the highest paid receiver. We still got insulted in the sense that he doesn't want to play here, but the idea is fun to entertain, that hopefully, they can move forward with developing some talent through the draft, maybe adding a free agent or 2 and just, rolling with him for the future.
I actually went the route of Polk here because he has the opportunity to be wide receiver 1 out of the gate, which he wasn't at Washington. It was Rome Odunze, but he did have 1159 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2023. He was really good in contested catch situations, really good downfield. He breaks a lot of tackles. He's solid after the catch. So I went with Polk to hedge my bet that Drake May maybe won't play till the second half of the season. But, obviously, if Drake May plays and he looks good, he's going to be the rookie of the year of this team. We just don't know when he's going to play. So I hedged my bet a little bit and went with Polk.
Some Polk fiction.
Some Polk fiction. Drock, what's your Drock's lock for the New England Patriots? What if it's just the under win total?
It's not the under win total.
Wow, bro. Look at that. That really, the camera looks so much better.
It does look clean with 4.
It's Stevenson to score 10-plus rushing touchdowns in the regular season at +6 honey. +6 honey.
All the touchdowns for the team this year.
I think he scores all the touchdowns for the team this year.
I might get a touch or two. I might get in the games. That's how bad it's going to be. So
that's hilarious. Bro wants to shave his head so bad. He's just throwing out shit on. He's just spewing shit on the wall, hoping it sticks so he can get a new haircut.
It's already gone. It's already gone. So there's not much to cut off, boys. So.
Yo, can we do a little? Can we get you to twist around? You know those TikTok videos? Do a little twirl. No,
you guys have too many TikTok inside jokes for me. But
it's called brain rot.
Yeah, whatever, dude. I don't want to hear about it. Paul, we really appreciate you joining us to talk about the New England Patriots, sir. Hope you had a good time. We appreciate your insight from someone that has witnessed the dynasty, now has to witness this dumpster fire of a team.
Thank you, Colin. And again, I just want to give a quick shout out to Quintel Clements. Hopefully you're tuning in on an episode today. We love you, Q. And, I had to give you one today. So thanks again, boys. This was great. And hopefully we have a confident product this year in New England.
Yeah, you can come on anytime. If you want to come on and give the Jets their flowers like you were before, you're welcome on whenever.
If you get a ring, baby, Mm-hmm. Thanks, boys.
Shout out Q. Thanks, Paul.
That was awesome.
All right, that was great, dude. All right, we're gonna move on.
Breaking news!
Whoa! What happened?
Someone just hopped on Underdog using my referral code, so I got $25 more in my account. So
come on, dude! I thought
that's
that was
another
a big trade or something.
No. I mean, more so breaking news for me, but that's another lineup for me in the Best Ball Mania. So
let's go. I still got to draft my Best Ball Mania teams.
I think Jake Bukowski. Shout out, brother.
Let's go. All right, Reagan, it's time to take flight and talk about your New York Jets.
Yes,
coming off a difficult season, which they won 7 games, 7-10. But when you actually look at it, winning 7 games with the situation they had with Aaron Rodgers not completing a pass was pretty damn good. The win total this year is set at 9.5. They won 7 games last year despite one of the worst offenses in the league and also having the 6th most injured roster, a -16 sack margin, and a -31 penalty margin, which hopefully should get better with an improved roster. 9.5 win total. Some key losses: Bryce Huff, Dwayne Brown, Carl Lawson, Zach Wilson, yuck, John Franklin Myers, Jordan Whitehead, Mekhi Becton, and Connor McGovern. But in comes Hassan Reddick, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
John Simpson, Mike Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, and Tyrod Taylor. That quarterback depth could be clutch down the road, Reagan. How good will your New York Jets be in 2024?
I'm just going to start, pardon my glaze, 12-5. I mean, I am so excited for them this year. I mean, the biggest thing you highlighted, you just named 3 offensive linemen who are going to be starting for us this year in Simpson, Moses, and Smith. So, and that was outside of not having consistent quarterback play. That was our biggest issue last year, was our offensive line. Because, yeah, Zach was terrible, but it's not like we could block for him either. I mean, half the time he was getting blitzed and had to just take a sack or throw an interception. I mean, so that is a huge fix right there. Plus, we went out and got Fashanu in the draft, so we got a 4th lineman. And with Tyron Smith, as great as he is, I know for a fact he's probably not going to play 17 games. So you'd imagine he'll get to play a lot too. So that excites me. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall are studs. I mean, Conklin had some good runs in Minnesota with consistent quarterback play and Kirk Cousins. So I think he's a guy that could be good for fantasy, whether it's redraft or dynasty. Snag him late in drafts or even on waivers. Mike Williams will be interesting, but I'm more excited for Malachi Corley just because we took him in the 3rd round, first pick. Aaron Rodgers wanted him, and he's a big yak guy. He actually led all of college football in yak last year, so that excites me a lot. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, we just have Pro Bowlers and all pros all over the field at every level. I mean, between Sauce, Mosley, both Williams brothers, and then obviously Jermaine Johnson had a great year last year in year 2. I hope McDonald can kind of follow that same path where he didn't get a ton of time year 1 and then in year 2 kept it going. I mean, obviously Reddick's a guy who's been a Pro Bowler. I believe in all pro as well, but don't quote me on that. But a guy we've seen be a high double-digit sack guy, so you hope they can figure that situation out. And then obviously between Michael Carter and DJ Reed, they're sick in the secondary as well. So super excited. 12-5. That is my unbiased take, as biased 17-0, but honestly, outside of like a few teams, we probably have one of the best rosters in the league.
God damn it. I hate to agree with you. I have the Jets at 12-5.
Wow. Winning the division?
Yes, I do have the Jets winning the division. Which today,
boom! That is a big boom. Come on now.
On betting markets, they actually became the favorite to win the division today, surpassing the Buffalo Bills. And
I know.
When you actually dig into these teams, the Jets roster on paper is significantly better than the Bills. It's just Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to come back? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be the same guy that we saw at 40? Now that he's 41 years old, which for me, I think he will be legit. I don't know if he's going to be in the MVP conversation, but with a 12-5 record, if that actually does happen, he will certainly be in the MVP conversation. For me, it was looking at this roster compared to the other teams in the division and also comparing the schedules. The Jets have the fourth easiest schedule projected for the season by Sharp. And they start off with a really easy schedule after week 1 against San Francisco. They are the first team in NFL history to get 6 primetime games in the first 11 weeks of the season. And they did that, set them up early. So for later in the season, they can flex them to later games because they do have a lot of big games. That's when their schedule starts to heat up towards the way end of the season. So I think we see the Jets in primetime a lot this year, which was the plan last year, but ultimately didn't work out because Zach Wilson ended up having to be your quarterback. But yeah, I think the Jets are going to start off hot. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is back. The offensive line looks legit on paper for the first time in a very long time. Health is the biggest concern here. You mentioned Tyron Smith. He's not going to play every game. He's not played more than 13 games since 2015. That's 9 years ago. But he did rank 3rd amongst all left tackles in pressure rate allowed last season, so he's still legit, still a stud. And I loved the Olu-Fashanu pick because he can play left tackle or right tackle if either Smith or Moses goes down. Beautiful insurance policy because you can't have a 41-year-old quarterback playing behind a revolving door of tackles. Very big. Elijah Vera-Tucker's only played 12 games over the last 2 seasons. Him being back and healthy at guard would really add a boost this line because they had to move him around to tackle out of necessity. Let him get comfortable out of spot and he can develop into a Pro Bowl / All-Pro caliber player, which would be massive for this offense. We know Breece Hall's legit, 299 touches last year for 1,585 yards and 9 touchdowns. Also, he barely scores within the 10-yard line because they don't really get inside the 10-yard line, so Breece has to score from all over the field. With Aaron Rodgers, I'd anticipate he does get more rushing opportunities inside that red area, and those touchdowns should go up.
I would temper expectations with the touchdowns just because I do think the rookie we drafted, Braylon Allen, I think he's just a massive human. So I think he's going to get a lot of the goal line work. And watch out, I think he's going to vulture. He's a guy like I think is sneaky to have 5+ rushing touchdowns. I know DK offers that, so I got to look at. I'll look at the odds while you keep going on your spiel. I didn't mean to cut you off, but he's sneaky for that.
No, I get that for sure. But also at the same time, I anticipate that this team will score a lot more touchdowns in its entirety. So I think Breece Hall will score more than 9. But I do agree with you, Reagan. Braylon Allen, the rookie they took out of Wisconsin, he's only 20 years old, but he was a 3-year starter at Wisco and is an absolute mauler in the run game. Breaks a ton of tackles. He's a big back. I believe he's 230 pounds. So he should be a goal line guy. Breece did kind of struggle with negative plays, though. He was 45th out of 49 backs in plays that generated 0 negative yards. An improved offensive line should help this. Maybe also being in an offense where it's not like they have to rely on him as that big play threat as much, and they should have other options to move the football. Allows them to kind of play more naturally instead of always trying to look for the home run ball. But, I mean, we're picking hairs there. Breece Hall is a stud, a top 3 back in the league at this point. Mentioned earlier, Garrett Wilson's back-to-back 1,000-yard season, so I'd anticipate if he's healthy, he gets to that 1,400-yard mark with Aaron Rodgers. And Mike Williams has only played in 16 games the last 2 seasons, recovering from that ACL. But when he's been on the field, he's been very, very good. And the Chargers offense was significantly better with him out there. So if he comes back and looks like he did for the Chargers, I think that's a very good number 2 for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Defensively, I mean, the top 3 defense in football, it's not arguable. They were first in yards per play allowed and 4th in points per drive allowed last season. Sauce only allowed 6 catches that were 10 or more yards downfield and over 300 coverage snaps last year. He was 2nd in PFF's coverage grade after being first as a rookie. What more needs to be said? Sauce Gardner is the best corner in football. DJ Reed and Michael Carter, like you mentioned, also very good options. So this secondary, you could argue, is the best in football. Tony Adams was great against the run from the safety spot last year. Wild card is Chuck Clark, who missed all of last season coming over from Baltimore. So can he stabilize that second safety spot? That'd be huge for this defense. You know, you mentioned Hassan Reddick. 4 straight seasons of double-digit sacks, Reagan. But is he going to be out there? I don't know. You play a game in less than 2 weeks, and he has not stepped on the field. So I think that's unlikely, but at the same time, does he want to get fined? Because it seems like the Jets aren't budging. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but if he actually is in the lineup, wow, this defense is disgusting. Jermaine Johnson, 7.5 sacks in his second season last year. He's a surefire starter. Will McDonald struggled to get snaps, like you mentioned, behind Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson last year. But, you know, his pressure rate of 12.8% was promising. So if he has to be your number 2 guy, hey, you took him in the first round for a reason. Let's see what you got. But hopefully he's your 3rd guy, and that's a legitimate pass rush. And then the linebacker core. It's one of the top linebacker cores in the entire league. And Quincy Williams actually surpassed C.J. Mosley last year as a better player, I think. He was top 10 in yards allowed per coverage snap and in run stuff. So he does it both ways while Mosley's getting up there in age. He's still a dog, don't get me wrong. But Quincy Williams has really developed. So, yeah, this Jets team is absolutely loaded. They have a favorable schedule. MVP, Hall of Fame quarterback in the mix. What's really held him back is the offense the past 2 years. This defense is top of the league. So, offensively, I can't imagine they're not in the top half of the league with Aaron Rodgers and the additions they made in the offensive line. So, for me, the Jets, 12-5, I think they're a surefire to make the playoffs this year. Bearing some crazy shit that happens, some crazy drama with Aaron Rodgers or he gets hurt. I think it's very unlikely. This team is just too good on paper to not make the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like we agree a lot. I mean, I'm not going to complain. You didn't really give me much to complain about. So you just kind of
really
doubled
not
down
much
and
to
gave me some
complain
more
about.
talking points.
The only thing you can complain about is the durability of the guys that they brought in.
Yeah.
And the age, but they're all in. They're the most all-in team this year, probably.
Yeah, I would say so. And even our backup quarterback in Tyrod is not one of the more durable guys either. So
no, but Tyrod's an underrated addition because Tyrod, I think he's the best backup in the league, to be honest with you. Like he could start on some teams right now.
Yeah, like I would say I don't know if he's the best, but he's definitely debatable number 1. And I agree that there's some teams that like Raiders,
Patriots
right now. Yeah, Patriots, Broncos right now. Like, you know.
So that's a very, very sleeper addition because if Rodgers is to miss time, you don't have Zach Wilson. You have a guy that's actually competent out there. So
yeah,
I think it's big. Your MVP.
Yeah, so I was going back and forth, but I ended with Brees. I mean, don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers is going to be huge for this team, but Brees is going to end up going for over 2,000 all-purpose yards this year, in my opinion. I think he's going to be in the double digits for touchdowns. He should, even if Braylon Allen steals a few. I'm super excited. I mean, we saw what he could do as a receiver last year, so I imagine they're going to try to use him the same way now that they saw, hey, that works. And with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, we've seen what he did for Aaron Jones in his career using him as a receiver. It was like his number 2 receiver at points behind Devontae Adams. So I expect him to be getting close to 300 or 400 touches this year altogether between receiving and running the ball. And I think he definitely has a chance to be the number 1 player in fantasy this year.
I went with Aaron Rodgers. I went the easy route because as we saw last year, when Aaron Rodgers went down, so did the Jets season. So he is the most valuable player to a T, in my opinion. If Rodgers is healthy, this team has Super Bowl aspirations. If he is not, they could still make the playoffs with Tyrod at the helm if Rodgers goes down at the end of the season. But I don't know, dude. Aaron Rodgers has got to be the MVP here. Their season hinges on him, which is why he's also my X factor.
Oh, yeah, he's my X factor for sure. I'll say him and the offensive line because, you need him to stay healthy, but also if the offensive line has issues, which I don't know if I think they'll be good when healthy, but obviously it's just a lot of older guys with injury concerns. So
on paper, though, it looks like
on paper, it's 10, a great
12
line.
unit. Yeah.
Like PFF has them ranked in the top 10 where I think us, Cleveland, and the 49ers are like the only 3 teams that have a top 10 D-line and offensive line. So I'm super excited, but if they can't stay healthy, so between Rodgers and the O-line, because Vera Tucker hasn't been able to stay healthy the past 2 years Very good when healthy. Tyron Smith hasn't been able to stay healthy the past couple of years. Very good when healthy. So big question marks there. I mean, Fashanu, who knows? I mean, you'd expect them to be good, but the Jets have whiffed and many other teams whiff on tackles all the time. So to sit here and act like he's going to become something great, I can't do. And you would hope Morgan Moses plays more like he did last year than 2 years ago, because we had him on the Jets. He wasn't great. Then he went to Baltimore and was great. So, and John Simpson, who knows? We've missed on the guards the past couple of years as well. So a lot of question marks there. So the line and Rodgers is my X factor, but more so the line.
I like that. Who's your rookie of the year? Tough to pick because not a lot of guys that they drafted are going to be thrust into the starting lineup, if any, because I think this team looks so loaded on paper.
Yeah, I think Braylon Allen. I'm actually super excited. I think they're going to use him a lot. He's 6'2", 245. I mean, the dude's massive. And I think they're smart enough that they know they're going to be a playoff team, assuming Rodgers and everyone stays healthy. So I don't think, while I do think Brees will be heavily involved and be a 300 to 400 touch guy, I still think he's going to have a big role. I think they're going to scheme up some 2 running back sets. I think they're going to kind of use it similar to what Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams was and what they wanted A.J. Dillon to be, where they were still a lot of packages where both running backs are on the field. So I think they're going to get very creative. And I think he's a guy that maybe won't have a ton of yards, but he may be a guy pushing for 10 touchdowns at the end of the season.
I like it. I went Olu Fashanu, the rookie, because I know Tyron Smith is going to miss 5 to 8 to 10 to maybe more games. Not rooting for injury. It's just what I've seen, right? The past 8 seasons, he's missed a handful of games. So I think Olu is going to be the most valuable rookie when he is inserted into the lineup. And I think he's going to perform the best when he's in the lineup. I know Corley's really good after the catch, but I don't know how big of an impact he's going to have because he's the 4th option when Mike Will gets back. Braylon Allen is behind one of the best running backs in football, although he will have an impact in short yard situations. But I think betting on Smith to get hurt and Fashanu having to start, he will perform well. He will protect Rodgers, and he's going to be the rookie of the year. Depoy, Sauce Gardner. Come on.
I was going to go with Quinnen just because he's like he has to step up even more this year, especially if Reddick's not going to play. He's a mauler in the run game. He's great against the pass. I mean, if he's to miss time, it's going to hurt the team a lot. Like, you can make the case for Sauce too. And you can make the same case for his brother Quincy or CJ. I mean, with a team like this where you have 3 or 4 guys that could be the best defensive player, but Quinnen really is debatable top defensive tackle in the league. I mean, it's either him, Lawrence, Chris Jones. I mean, he at his best, he's huge. I mean, teams are scheming against him and trying to run away from him. He has a huge impact. I mean, if he can get back to that 10 double-digit sack mark, that would be huge for the team. And we know he's going to be good against the run. So he is my defensive MVP this year.
I like that pick. I went Sauce Gardner, just mentioned earlier, he's the best corner in football, but Quinnen was 4th amongst all defensive linemen in run stuffs last year, but his pressure rate dropped to 19th, which he's done better. So I agree with you in the sense that if he can get back up to that double-digit sack mark and his top 10 in pressure rate from the interior, could be even bigger for this defense, especially, with Reddick out of the lineup right now.
Yeah.
Drock, what's your lock?
I'm curious for this one.
Brees Hall to have 1,000+ rushing yards and 500 receiving yards in the regular season. Now, with telling you guys that, what do you think the odds are?
1,000 rushing and 500 receiving. I think it's plus 250.
Plus 450.
Plus 275.
Oh, that's not bad, bro.
So it's doable. It's doable.
Bro, he almost did that last year. He was like 10 yards short rushing. I think he had 500 receiving, but yeah. So as long you're just basically betting on him staying healthy.
Exactly, staying healthy. Yep.
Improved offensive line, improved quarterback play, more points, more yards for everybody. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Easier schedule too, so you expect us to be up in a lot of these games and just running the ball with him. But that's also why I think Allen's going to be involved a lot more towards the end of games because he's the bigger back, the mauler that you just want to take when it's in an obvious run situation when you're trying to run out the clock. It's like, hey, Brees Hall doesn't have to take all these hits. We can give it to the mauler.
I can see it. All right. Time to move on, Reagan. I'm sorry. I know you're upset. Time to talk about the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins finished 11-6 last year. Their win total is at 9.5 this year. Just want to highlight something. The Dolphins went 10-1 against teams that missed the playoffs last year. They went 1-5, with their only win being against Dallas. Against playoff teams, they were also outscored by 91 points in those 6 games versus playoff teams. And this year, they're projected to play. No, I'm sorry. They are playing 10 teams that finished over 500 last year. Projected 9 of them going to have a winning record this year. So, big step up in schedule difficulty here in that regard. But still, Sharp projects the 8th easiest schedule in totality. But a lot more games against winning teams, which they've struggled against. Some key losses: Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, Xavier Howard, Emmanuel Ogbah, Andrew Van Ginkel, Connor Williams, and Jerome Baker. Some key adds: Jordan Brooks, Calais Campbell, Kendall Fuller, Aaron Brewer, Jonnu Smith, OBJ, and Jordan Poyer. Do the Dolphins eclipse 9.5 wins this year?
Yeah, barely. I got them going 10-7. I mean, even if they are the Dallas Dolphins or the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC, I still think they're going to do well in the regular season. I mean, when you have Waddle and Tyreek and the dynamic running back duo, which could be a trio this year. I know we're all kind of high on Jalen Wright and what they can do with him. So they have 3 obviously electric running backs. And the offensive line, obviously losing Robert Hunt's going to hurt, but I still expect them to be one of the better units in the league this year. And
I don't. Oh, no.
Well, still, I'm not even going to complain with that, but still, obviously, with all that being said, and the defense, I mean, you still got some good players out there. I mean, and obviously Chop Robinson, they spent what they take him 21 they took him at. So obviously they're expecting him to be a higher impact guy. I mean, if Jalen Ramsey, I know he's obviously getting older. He's not what he once was, but when he came back last year, it was pretty evident that he was making plays. I mean, I remember in that Jets Dolphins Thanksgiving game, he had a big pick. Javon Holland, also a guy who's very good. Remember when they took him in the second round out of Oregon, he's a bigger impact guy. So, and obviously getting guys like Chubb back this year, Jalen Phillips, and some of those other guys you expect, and adding Calais Campbell. I mean, the defensive line has some guys, so if they can get some pressure, it'll kind of take some pressure off that secondary as well. So I got them going 10-7. I don't think they'll go far in the playoffs, but I just find it too hard with how electric this offense will be at times that they can't win that many games.
Shit, I also got them at 10-7.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean,
is not on this pod.
Yeah, yeah, not really, not yet. We'll see about Buffalo, but yeah, I mean, I really like Mike McDaniel as a head coach. I like how they adjusted their scheme to keep Tua healthy. He played his first full season last year and led the league in passing yards with over 4,600. He did have 14 interceptions, which is a little worrisome, but the 29 touchdowns made up for it. And, you know, I mentioned earlier how the team struggles against playoff teams. If you look at Tua against those playoff teams, he's significantly worse. The team is 3-12 in the last 2 years against playoff teams, and he's thrown more than 2 touchdowns in only one of those games. So if you're a gambling man, if you're a fantasy man, and you're streaming quarterbacks, if Tua is playing a playoff team, maybe go with the other option. But if he's playing a non-playoff team, you can predict that Tua is going to light their ass up. That's just what we've seen. The running backs were phenomenal last year, this running back core. They were top 3 in a ton of key metrics. They shifted to more of an outside zone scheme, which makes sense given that this is the fastest running back room in the league, and they dominated. Mostert was a stud. Career high 234 touches, 1187 total yards, and 21 touchdowns. Achane had 997 yards and 11 touchdowns on only 130 touches, which is why we see him going in round 2, maybe early round 3 in fantasy drafts right now. He averaged 7.8 yards per carry, which is the best in NFL history for someone in a season with at least 100 carries. The injury concerns are there, though, which is why he makes it a risky pick, which is why if you're going to go Achane, I kind of like taking the handcuff of Jalen Wright later on in the draft. He did miss 6 games last year, and there were 2 games in which he played only 9 total snaps. So he basically almost had a 1,000-yard season playing in 9 games, which is crazy. I mean, what needs to be said about Tyreek Hill? I mean, 13 touchdowns last year, almost had 2,000 yards. It was really close. Tua even came out and said that they were trying to get him that 2,000-yard mark, but maybe he does it this year. Waddle's gone over 1,000 yards in all 3 seasons in the league. So offensively, I love the weapons. I don't love the O-line. You lost Robert Hunt from an offensive line that was 31st in ESPN's pass block win rate the past season. Armstead has missed 11 games in 2 years with Miami, so he is vital to their success. He has to be healthy. But Tua's getting the ball out a lot quicker now. They're trying to protect them from injury, and it helped them last year be even more efficient, and he was able to play a full season. So I like what Mike McDaniel did with Tua, and it kind of protects some of those offensive line struggles, which is huge. Defensively, I have some question marks from a defense that was actually really good last season. Vic Fangio's gone, the mastermind that was running this defense, one of the more well-respected defensive minds in the entire game, has been doing it for decades. He's now back in Philly. Chubb, who led the team with 11 sacks last year in 16 games, had a disgusting 15.7% pressure rate, but he tore his ACL December 31st. So he's not ready yet. You have to wait for him to come back. Jalen Phillips had 6.5 sacks in 8 games before his Achilles tear. I'd imagine he's back before Chubb, but we don't know, which is why adding Chop Robinson in the first round was, he's not going to start when both those guys are back healthy, but he'd be a rotational guy. But big need right there, right now, and the value is there. I mean, Chop had the 11th best pressure rate amongst all Power 5 edge rushers last year. He never had the sack numbers that you love to see, but he has all the elite traits to develop into a stud. Just seems like your stereotypical Penn State outside linebacker type of guy. So I like the Chop addition. Linebackers, David Long is solid. Jordan Brooks is solid. Secondary, I love the secondary. Jalen Ramsey's only played 10 games last year, but he's back. He's a stud. Kendall Fuller was the lone bright spot in Washington's secondary last year. Javon Holland, you highlighted, is great at safety. And Poyer, only $2 million a year for a veteran presence that, yeah, he's on the decline, but he's still a serviceable, solid player and should be good at the back end of that defense to add some leadership. So love the secondary. The front will be good once they get those 2 guys back and Phillips and Chubb. I do think they fare a little bit better against winning teams this season. I got them at 10-7. The offense is just too explosive for me to have this team with the losing record.
Yeah, way too explosive. I mean, that's probably why we both have the same MVP. Tyreek Hill's mine.
Yeah, it's Tyreek Hill. Come on, dude. It's Tyreek Hill. I mean, we didn't even touch on how the offense looked when Tyreek was out of action last year for a little bit, but it just did not have the same pop, obviously. Like Jalen Waddle wasn't able to handle the full workload, and because then you put your pressure on Waddle and you have 2 burners out there that you can't go one-on-one. So it's definitely Tyreek Hill here.
Yeah, I mean, in fantasy owners were all licking their chops to see what Waddle could do. It, he just never. Everyone was like, "Oh, like what can this guy be in this span?" And it disappointed. So but I guess the X factor. Mine, I went a couple different ways. I went back and forth. Could it be the O-line? But mine ended up being Bradley Chubb and his health when he gets back, because he's a guy that obviously they spent a lot of capital to go get him from Denver. He's a guy we've seen be a double-digit sacks guy. So if he can get back, be healthy, return the forms, be a double-digit sack guy or close to it, because obviously he won't be playing a full season, so it might be tough to still get into the double digits. But if it's like evident as soon as he comes back that the pressure's up even more for the D-line, and I think he can just be a big impact. I really do. So he's my X factor.
I like the pick. I mean, you can go in the trenches both ways. You can go Phillips and Chubb coming back from injury. You can go the O-line. To play devil's advocate, I'll go the O-line right now. Keeping Tua upright. We've highlighted multiple times in this podcast. Tua is 1 hit away from it being a problem, and he's going to miss significant time. And then Miami's season's over because Skylar Thompson is not going to be that guy, even with the weapons they have. So I went with the offensive line. Just be better than last year. Tua's going to get the ball out quick. Just give him that time to make his reads. I love the little short motions they do. It's just really difficult to cover, and they run those stop routes, and Tua's going to be able to get the ball out. Just allow him that opportunity. So for me, I went with the offensive line, ensuring that Tua stays healthy. Your rookie of the year.
Yeah, so my rookie of the year, I ended up going with Jalen Wright just because I really do think he's going to be involved this year. I honestly, with Mostert, while he was healthy last year, he's a guy who's dealt with injuries back with San Francisco. A-Chain, obviously, last year we saw he dealt with injuries, so I expect them to both miss times. And I think this is a team that has playoff aspirations. So I think no matter who's to miss time, they're going to kind of take their time with it because they have such good depth at the running back position. So I think he's going to be involved this year. I think he'll break that 100 touch mark between carries and receiving, but I think he's going to have a decent role for this team. And I think they're going to use him in a bunch of different ways. And they're, Mike McDaniels has proven that he's a very dynamic play caller and likes to scheme up a lot of different things.
I like the pick. I went with Chop Robinson ultimately because he's going to be thrust into the starting lineup right away until those two guys get back. And I think he'll have a big impact. He just needs to. But, looking at this draft class in its entirety, I kind of like it a lot. I'm not going to go with Patrick Paul, the offensive lineman they took in the second round out of Houston. He started every game in his 5-year career at left tackle, but he's more of an insurance guy right now. He's not expected to start. Jalen Wright you can go with, but he is that third running back right now. But keep your eyes on Muhammad Kamara. They took in the 6th round an edge rusher. He did not play Power 5 ball, but in 4 games against Power 5 opponents over the last 2 seasons, he was actually dominant, including against Michigan, where he had several pressures and a sack. So for him to show up against that level of competition, he doesn't have the tools, which is why he fell to the 6th round, but the production was really good against Power 5 teams. So maybe with Chop there and Kamara there rotating in, he could have an impact. I don't know. Just something to keep an eye on. Muhammad Kamara. But I went with Chop Robinson.
Hey, that's interesting. Let me tell you that.
Huh. You like that?
Makes you think.
Who's your depoy?
So my depoy, I ended up going with, I don't know. You might give me, I don't know. I don't think you'll give me too much crap, but I ended up going with Javon Holland. I mean, from what he's proven, he's one of the
second best player in the secondary?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, why wouldn't you go with Chubb or Ramsey, some of the bigger names? I feel like he's not a household name yet where he should be, but I think he's one of the best safeties in football. I mean, he's very dynamic when he gets the ball in his hands. I mean, we saw last year from that 90-whatever yard touchdown return on Black Friday. He's great. He's great. I mean, he's been everything they expected drafting him in the 2nd round a couple years back.
Yeah, I went with Jalen Ramsey, the chalky pick. He's just one of the best corners in football when he's healthy. So he's the fuel that runs the secondary. I got to go with Jalen Ramsey, man. But I don't hate the Javon Holland pick, to be honest with you. He is a solid player. All right, Drock, what do you got?
What's up, Felters?
Hey.
No, it's fine. Not funny. All right. Tyreek Hill to have a 200-plus receiving yard regular season game at plus 275. Slam it!
200 yards in a game. That is certainly possible. I love it, actually. He could. I mean, he could score. He could score from 70 in the first quarter, and you're like, all right, we're looking pretty good. You know,
180-yard reception when they're on the 20. I mean, dude, anything's possible.
Especially if they're trying to get him to 2K again, and he's on track. Like, you know, like it could definitely happen. At plus 275. I mean, I like that. I like that a lot, Drock. All right, you ready to talk about the Bills, Reagan?
Mm-hmm.
Wrap this puppy up.
Now. I'm ready. Let's talk some Bills.
The Buffalo Bills, the reigning division champions at 11-6. Their win total this year is at 10.5. They have the 10th most difficult schedule projected by Sharp. Some key losses: Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Leonard Floyd, Micah Hyde, Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer. Essentially, their entire starting secondary from last year is gone. Some key adds: Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Mac Hollins, Mike Edwards, and Austin Johnson. This team has a dead cap charge of $61.2 million this year, with over half of that attributed to Stephon Diggs. Hence why they had to shed a lot of weight, and they didn't really bring in a ton of talent, Reagan. Doesn't matter, though, with Josh Allen at the helm.
No, it doesn't. This team's going to be good. I mean, they're not going to win the Super Bowl or anything like that, but I still got them going 11-6 this year, and most of it has to do with Josh Allen. I mean, the guy is a stud. It's going to hurt them losing Matt Milano. Is he out for? He is out. No, we talked about this. He's not confirmed out for the year, but he's going to be out for the majority of the season, so that's going to obviously hurt a lot. And obviously, they already had to let a lot of guys go in the offseason, so none of it's great. And obviously losing Diggs, Gabe Davis, that doesn't help. But I think just basically betting on Josh Allen, it would be like putting Patrick Mahomes or close to Patrick Mahomes in this situation. I still think they're going to beat up on the bad teams. And then, some of these better teams, they might get exposed a little bit just because the defense isn't great. And obviously the offense doesn't have the weapons it once had. But I am excited for what Keon Coleman can do. Obviously, Ray Davis, a guy they drafted out of Kentucky, the running back, he's sneaky. I've been picking him up and throwing him in my taxi spot for Dynasty right now, but he seems to be or on the outside track to get that number 2 job behind James Cook with a role. So I think they're going to have to rely a lot more on James Cook. And then the tight ends between Knox and Kincaid, I think they're both going to have big roles, especially Kincaid. He's a guy I've been targeting a lot in fantasy leagues, Dynasty, best ball, you name it. He's one of my favorite tight ends for fantasy this year.
Yeah, I love Dalton Kincaid. I got the Bills at 9-8 and on the outside looking in the playoff picture this year. Hate to do it because Josh Allen is that dude, but they just lost so much talent from me, man. I mean, Allen had the highest interception rate of his career at 3.1% last year and lowest touchdown rate as a passer at 5%, and now you lose Stephon Diggs. Not ideal. He did lead the team with 15 rushing touchdowns and actually leads the entire league in rushing touchdowns with 53 since he entered the league in 2018, which is pretty crazy. I love Dalton Kincaid, 73 catches for 673 yards and 2 touchdowns as a rookie. I'd expect all of those numbers to go up this year. I'd love him for fantasy. Mentioned earlier, the wide receiver core, don't love it. Curtis Samuel's yet to eclipse 900 receiving yards, but hopefully with Joe Brady in that connection, he can become more so what he was in 2020. A lot is hinging on Keon Coleman. Ton of potential, but was inconsistent at both Michigan State and Florida State. He does struggle to create separation, but he's a freak athlete. He's 6'4". He can hurdle dudes. He returned punts, so he has the tools to be a legit threat, but needs to get better at getting open and catching the ball. Hopefully he does, because this offense needs it. I love James Cook, 281 touches last year for 1,567 yards and 6 touchdowns. Only 6 touchdowns because Josh Allen hawks a lot of those, but I love what I've seen from James Cook. I think he's a more integral part of the offense this year, as when Joe Brady took over the second half of last year, he got more involved, Diggs less involved. Defensively, I don't love it. I really don't. I mean, they basically lost their entire secondary. Not ideal. They're projected to face the most difficult schedule of opposing offenses. They play a gauntlet of stud quarterbacks this year. So a lot of guys going to have to step up in that secondary. Don't love it. The first of the defensive line, Ed Oliver, love him, finally reached his potential, lived up to that draft status, 9.5 sacks, 14.5% pressure rate, was 14th amongst interior defensive linemen in ESPN's pass rush win rate and 5th in run stop win rate. So he's the engine that leads this defense right now with all the veterans that departed. AJ Epineza out of Iowa, they took him a couple years ago, 6.5 sacks. Gregory Rousseau, another edge rusher they took out of Miami a couple years ago, had 5 sacks, but had the 20th best pressure rate. So there's more promise there that he will get those sack numbers up. And his run stuffs were good. What about Von Miller, man? Von Miller, they gave him a bag. Is he ever going to return to that form and pay dividends?
Well, he's not even slated to be the starter. He's slated to be the 3rd, 4th guy rotating in. I mean, he's obviously going to still play a bunch, and he'll be used probably a lot on 3rd down and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. Who would have thought Von Miller would be coming in as a backup?
Yeah, dude, it's not ideal. It's really not ideal. But
no,
if he gets even close to what he was 2 years ago before the injury, if that's your situational pass rush, you're going to be feeling pretty good about that. Christian Benford has big shoes to fill in the secondary, but he was good in coverage last year in his second season. Rasul Douglas was good after getting acquired from Green Bay. Taylor Rapp is solid at safety. Just a lot of question marks on this secondary. I think Josh Allen is going to have to play Superman a lot this season. I got him at 9-8, bro. I got him at 9-8 under the win total.
Wow. Is that getting in the playoffs?
No, the Bills are not making the playoffs this year.
Wow.
If I'm correct,
bro.
My playoff picture is Kansas City, the Jets, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Colts, the Texans.
Wow.
And the Miami Dolphins. No Bills. No Bills for me in the playoffs.
Fair. I mean, I get it. I mean, on paper, the roster's not great. It was just hard for me to see. While Josh Allen may struggle against the Jets, he just dominates against pretty much all the other NFL, especially the bad teams. So I just find it hard to believe that they can't get into the playoffs. But we've highlighted the AFC is so competitive this year. Like there's very few teams I think that you can't make a case for to make the playoffs this year. So it's tough. It's tough.
Absolutely. And like in their own division, they got worse.
Yeah.
The Jets certainly got better. Miami, I mean, I don't know if they got better, but they're kind of around the same for me. I mean, they lost Christian Wilk, which is a big loss, and Robert Hunt, but ultimately, Miami and the Jets have a significantly easier schedule than the Bills do, and that's kind of what tilted it for me as well at the end.
Fair. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, the schedule really does go into it because you already highlighted how good Tua is against bad teams, so
yeah,
it's a big
absolutely. Factor. MVP, it's Josh Allen. I don't think we need to spend any time there. X Factor, what do you got?
Mine is the wide receiver core because there's so many
mine too.
Yeah, all right, fine. I'll make a case for I'll make a different case. So mine is I'll go with the edge rushers then because I was kind of debating them too. Obviously, the secondary has a lot of question marks. A lot of guys are gone. The linebacker core, Matt Milano, is going to miss time. So the edge rushers, they need to step up. They need to take all the pressure off of it because you can hide the defensive issues when you are putting pressure on the quarterbacks. You can hide all those secondary issues when the quarterback only has 2-3 seconds to throw the ball. And obviously, they got some names on that D-line, and Oliver, Rousseau, Von Miller, who's Epinesa. Yeah, English is tough sometimes. English is tough sometimes, but obviously they got some guys here. So if those guys can step up, really put the pressure on, I think it could be huge.
I like it. Your first choice was the wide receiver core. That's what I went with. Who's going to step up and be that number one option for Josh Allen? They were still successful without Diggs being involved heavily in the back half of the season last year, but I don't know if they can sustain that for a full season. We just saw how much the Chiefs offense struggled compared to what they were last year when they led the league in drops and no one really established themselves till Rashee Rice did eventually at the end of the season. But for the Bills, they don't want to have a similar situation with Josh Allen this year. They need guys to step up early and really establish themselves. Rookie of the year.
I got to go with my guy, Ray Davis. I was already talking about it. I think he is going to probably be the goal line back. He's a bigger back. Out of Kentucky, had some decent production there. Obviously, fourth round isn't a whole lot of capital, but for the position, that's the biggest thing because running backs, it's pretty rare we even see him go in the first round anymore, but we see a lot of guys go in the fourth, fifth, sixth round, but he's 220 pounds. He's not tall. He's only 5'8", but he's an older guy, played a lot of ball in college. So I expect him to have a role here. I don't think James Cook is going to be the goal line back. He's a smaller back. He's not built like Dalvin, so he's more of a receiving back. While he was successful last year running the ball, I just think Ray Davis is going to have a big role. I think he's going to be involved easily over 100 touches, maybe pushing that 200 touch mark.
I went with Keon Coleman. I don't love this draft class in its entirety. You can make the argument for Cole Bishop, the second round safety they took out of Utah, but just because they have question marks in the secondary. But ultimately, Keon Coleman's going to be starting from day one. Josh Allen's got to develop a chemistry with somebody. I went with Keon Coleman in the case that it is him that becomes that number one guy. Depoy, Reagan.
Yeah, well, it would have been Matt Milano, but obviously it can't anymore.
I knew you were going to go Milano. You love Milano.
Dude, because he's so good. He's so good. I'm just going to go with Ed Oliver. I mean, he's a big presence in the middle there. I mean, obviously, you'd like to see his numbers go up more this season, but he's still one of the better guys. I mean, he was a stud at Houston. He was a guy that almost went first overall years ago, but he really needs to step up, and I think he will. I mean, he's got it. No Matt Milano anymore. So many other guys that were big impacts are gone. He's got to step up and make it big for the hide the flaws with Von Miller not being as healthy anymore and getting older, and the other guys. He's just got to be the MVP and will him on defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no arguments for me there, dude. I mean, he's got to be the engine that leads this team. Honestly, they just need help, and he got paid like the player that he is. So it's time to step up with all those veterans that were there your entire tenure. Now you're the vet. Step in that leadership role and lead this defense.
Yeah.
Drock, what's your lock?
What do we think, gentlemen?
It's Josh Allen over rushing touchdowns.
No, but it is rushing, and we are adding another leg to it. We're gonna go Josh Allen 750 regular season rushing yards,
Holy
which
shit.
he's hit. He is
What is
hit.
that? Plus what?
And we are adding James Cook to have James Cook. I don't know if y'all figured that was Drops Locks video. At 1,000 regular season rushing yards. Those parlayed get you to plus 900. And they both hit in 2022. Slam it. Sorry.
2022 or 2023?
Sorry, 2023.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Yeah, 2023.
Yeah, okay. So you're betting on the run game in Buffalo with Joe Brady taking over with all the question marks at receiver. You think this team is going to lean into the run a little bit here? I love
my boy Josh running. And guess what? It's just not going to be into the end zone as much. He's just going to be running midfield and catching me my yards.
I can see it. No one's open downfield. Josh Allen, who wants to tackle that guy in open field? He's just going to take off with the ball.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think he's going to run the ball a lot more this year, you would think. I mean, the weapons aren't as good. He's going to definitely become more of a Superman than he already is for this team.
He's got to be, Reagan. Okay.
Got to be, bro.
That wraps up the AFC East prediction pod. We're now done with all the division prediction pods, Reagan. Wow, we finally made it.
Let's go. We
finally made it.
Good job, gentlemen. I love listening to every single one of you guys speak about each team.
It's a lot of research went into going and digging into all those 32 teams. Just happy we're almost there, man. 9 days from the season. We got 2 more pods before we kick it off in Kansas City. We have our season-long predictions where we will highlight our playoff picture and awards predictions. And then, obviously, the week 1 predictions. We're back into the swing of things.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait. That first wheel spin, that first Drox lock. I mean,
oh, stop it. Stop it.
Oh, and there's going to be a new addition to the crew very soon.
That there will be.
Can I tell them or no? Should we wait?
You could tell them.
Yeah, we're getting a second wheel this year. You know.
Yeah.
Although it would have been funny if I don't know if he's gonna. Did you tell him to make it exactly the same, or is he gonna do a different color?
I don't know if it's gonna be exactly the same. I said he can use different colors. So I'm just gonna let Stu rock with it. Stu, handy mate Stu, neighbor across the street. He's the man. He, if any of your handy mate needs, shout out to Stu. He's got you. He can do anything, and that includes making a first touchdown score wheel. So.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be hilarious. It would have been hilarious if it's exactly the same because people would be like, "How the hell do they get it? How the hell are they just? How is Reagan spinning it in Califon and these guys are spinning it in Hoboken? How are they doing it on a Sunday and a Monday?" And she'd be like,
"It's like no, we appreciate the grind. I'm driving there to pick it up every week."
Yeah, that would have been funny.
No, we got 2 wheels. Can't wait for the first touchdown scores. Went up 100 units last year, I believe, or 99 maybe. Might have been 99.
No, it was 100. We round up here.
Yeah, you could round, but it was.
Unless we're losing money, then we round down.
Yeah, so wheel's gonna be back. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.